It also gives these inspectors the ability to secure any item of yours or anything of yours for a period not exceeding 24 hours, but the 24-hour period may be extended more than once. So basically they can take it for as long as they want. Inspectors may also be assisted by other persons. Now it says here that once the inspector has gained entry to your house, the inspector may ask the occupier to answer any question relating to the operation of any act or the associated provisions that are put by the inspector, and produce any document that the inspector asks for. Now, there are things called monitoring warrants which may be granted to these inspectors, and one may ask what a monitoring warrant is. It seems suspiciously like a warrant that is obtained to come and look at exactly what you're doing. So this would indicate that a person will not have to have committed any type of crime or be under any type of suspicion. An inspector really only has to go and obtain a monitoring warrant for any house he feels like inspecting. And this is essentially a search warrant which gives the inspector the ability to come into any house, and once in the house, the inspector may again require any person to answer any question relating to the act and to produce any document relating to the operations of this act. Now, this is if they come into your house under a monitoring warrant. Okay? This gives them the same power, but you don't have to consent to entry to your house. All they have to do is get a monitoring warrant and they're in. And it should be very much noted that also in this clause it says that a person commits an offence if the person fails to comply with the requirements of the inspector. Therefore, if you refuse to answer a question, if you refuse to produce any personal document, any private literature, anything at all about your person, anything within your house, if you fail to produce anything to this inspector, or fail to answer any question that this inspector asks of you, you will be subject to imprisonment for 6 months or 30 penalty units, or both. This is blatant Nazism. And it also says that a person is not excused from giving an answer or producing a document on the grounds that the answer or the production of the document might tend to incriminate the person. So therefore, the freedom to not incriminate yourself is also removed. You have to answer all questions, you have to produce all documents. Should you not do so, you will be subject to a mandatory 6 months imprisonment or 30 penalty units, or both. One might wonder how many penalty units you can collect before you don't pass go anymore. Now this is blatant Nazism, folks. This is open fascism in a climate bill. This is the fascist clause of the carbon legislation that is being put forth by the Rudd government. This is a very clear indication that the Rudd government serves the same international banking cartel that all other Western governments serve. We seriously need to remedy these problems. We seriously need to remedy the criminal element that has usurped control of all of our governments, and who is now, through the mechanism of naturally occurring climate change, attempting to secure control of the entire globe. We need to remedy this situation, and it's easy to remedy the situation by simply spreading information at a grassroots level and letting people know what's going on. Getting people to get away from their television sets a little bit and actually take their head out of the mainstream media and look at what is really going on. Just lay the cards on the table for these people, because once we have enough people within society making noise, then we can address this situation. There's billions of us, folks. We can have honest government on this planet. We can solve most of the world's problems simply by eliminating this criminal element that is currently controlling our governments. And it's extremely important that we do this, folks, because doing this will be the first step to freedom for the entire human race. And it is the freedom that we very much deserve, the freedom that we are being denied by this criminal banking cartel that has usurped power on the planet. And people really do need to understand that this is a global problem. I hear a lot of people speaking out against America and putting the blame on America. A lot of people blaming Obama and all of that sort of thing. And it's got to be understood that this is a global problem, folks. America is simply one of the most prominent players because it is the American military that is being used to enforce a lot of this stuff around the globe. But America itself is simply a corporation which is run by the Crown Corporation out of London. This whole system, this whole octopus of control that's in place, it's this big corporate entity, folks, and it stretches out across the entire globe. They try different things in different countries, but they just simply use these separate countries as little testing grounds. And eventually these things spread out and get implemented in other countries. Every country follows suit of other countries. Like the new internet censorship laws that are being put in place here, and this insidious Hitlerian carbon legislation that has been put forth by the Rudd government. These will soon be introduced in all Western countries if they're not there already. There's probably clauses in place within America and England already that support these very same ideas. This wouldn't surprise me at all. I haven't looked at the legislation. You look at the way the police force in America and in England and in Australia here has all become more and more Gestapo-like, even down to the black uniform. I mean, these people are getting awfully blatant and open about it all. And then you look at stuff like what happened at the G20 summit in London and what happened at the recent summit in Copenhagen. Look at the police brutality that occurred on these occasions. Look at how this is condoned by the governments. It's all condoned by these governments. Our governments who claim to be going out and defending other countries against oppression. But now look at the state of Iraq and look at how much our governments are oppressing our own people. Look at what happened at the G20 summit. Look at what happened in Copenhagen. These are the type of governments that we now have in place in all of our Western countries. Governments that support this type of domestic terrorism being carried out against the citizens of their country in order to protect international banking interests. This needs to be clearly seen by everybody. When you look at these protests, you know, the WHO protests, the WTO protests, the Copenhagen protests, there's so many people that get out there and try to wake people up about this. All of these protests are ultimately about the same thing, and that is the encroaching global government. The media spins it all the time. The media spins it so people stay home and they think, oh, the nasty protesters, why are they out there protesting the World Health Organization? They think that the World Health Organization is there to actually create health. The World Health Organization is there to create disease. It creates all sorts of diseases and immunization problems and all sorts of death and mayhem all around the planet. The World Health Organization controls health, all right. It makes sure that nobody has any. The World Trade Organization simply controls the flow of resources around the planet. It controls the flow of food. It makes sure that certain countries are marginalized. All of these organizations are all United Nations organizations, and if you look at it on the deepest possible level, right down at the nitty-gritty of it all, you'll find that the United Nations is simply a round table of puppets that are run by the same international banking cartels that are running everything else. This whole thing is being run out of Europe. It's being run by European bloodlines. And when you really look at it, you find that a lot of it runs back to the Vatican. A lot of it runs back to the Roman Empire. And what we are seeing with all of this stuff is the very, very gradual implementation of a completely locked down society, folks. And it would be so easy for us to fix it. That's what I've been trying to let people know on all of these shows, is that it's very easy for us to fix this problem. We simply stop going along with it because we are being used as the mechanism that is creating this entire prison system. We are the ones that are financing it. We are the ones that are populating it. We are the ones who are removing our own rights, all because a group of private individuals at the very top writes all these rules out on paper and tells us that we have to go along with it, when actually we don't. Actually, we're just as powerful as they are, and we don't have to do what they say. So that's the thing, folks. I mean, I'm not speaking out against the concept of having government. I understand that we need some sort of governing body in place to have a country, to have a world where we all get on and everything works. I mean, we need something in place. What I'm saying, though, is that the system that we now have in place has been put in place by an international criminal cartel.